Hey guys, this is Whigham back here with another recipe. I just want to make a really quick announcement to remind you to wash your hands in case you haven't heard that enough. And then the other thing I want to say about these recipes, they are just suggested activities. You do not have to do that specific recipe. You can do a different recipe and turn that in place as one of your activities. If you are making a meal for your family once a week, that's what I'm hoping to see. But that being said, if you want to try these recipes, that's awesome. Today we're going to be doing homemade hamburger helper, a little bit healthier maybe if you read some of the ingredients on the hamburger helper box. And it's the same idea that you guys can use what you have at home and make lots of replacements. So for example, this recipe calls for ground beef, but I didn't have any ready, so I'm actually using ground sausage. If you have venison at home, if you have ground turkey, if you have ground chicken, that is totally fine. It would probably be a little tricky to do this specific recipe vegetarian, but if you email me, I have a vegetarian option that you could use that requires chickpeas, which is also pretty fun. The theme for this week is that we're going to do everything in one pot. So I'm using my big casserole pan, but it would work just as well in this pot if that's what you have at home. I chose this so that you guys could see while I'm cooking. It'd be harder to see inside this. But again, I want you guys to use what you have. So what I'm doing right now, the culinary technique is called browning. I'm browning the meat until all of the pink is gone. And ground beef is definitely one of the most, or ground pork or whatever. Ground meat is in general the cheapest cut of beef you can get, or any meat. Less, maybe like the soup bones itself. But it's a really economical cut. So I'm going to keep browning this. I'll come back when it's all brown. Okay, so the pork in this case is mostly brown. I'm going to go ahead and add the onions in so they can start softening up. If you have fresh garlic at home, you would probably add that around now too. We are actually out of fresh garlic, so I'm going to be using garlic powder. So one of the ratios that you should have in the back of your mind is that you use 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder to 1 clove of garlic. So the recipe called for 2 cloves of garlic, so I'm going to use 2 1/4. 1 and 2. And if you don't have garlic or garlic powder, just leave it out. It's no big deal. And if you have onion powder, you could use that in place of the onions. If you have dehydrated onions, you can use that. You definitely want some type of onion flavoring if you can get it, because it does bring out the flavor a lot. We're going to keep letting this soften. And in a minute or two, we're going to add all the other ingredients, including the pasta, so it can cook in all one pot. And just put a lid on it and let it cook for a few minutes. I'm going to let this cook down for a minute and show you the next step. Okay, so we have got a boil started here. One thing I forgot to mention before is that the pasta really does like to stick to the bottom of the pan. So make sure that you're stirring pretty constantly. And so I am going to go ahead and cover it for now. I've got my lid here, but every couple of minutes I'm going to come back and stir and make sure that I really cover the whole bottom of the pan, because the noodles are liking to stick. I did test with my sauce and it's pretty salty, so I'm not going to need to add any salt. I added a little fresh pepper, but you can also just add whatever is your preference. One thing that I forgot to explain before, bouillon is just a cube that has the flavoring of beef or chicken broth. If you have that in your kitchen, you can use it. If you don't have it, again, just use water or milk. Okay, so we'll check back in about 8 minutes when this is boiling and see how it looks. Thank you guys. Okay, the noodles are soft. It's been about 10 minutes. We are basically done. So the last step is to add about a cup of cheese. I just grated some cheddar. If you've got mozzarella, Colby, whatever you have at home. If you just have some grated shredded cheese already, that would be awesome too. You can use a little bit less than a cup if you don't have a full cup. So we're going to mix this in and let that cheese melt. I'm going to turn the heat off and then let's let it sit about 5 minutes, because there is still a little bit of moisture in the pan. So if we just let it sit for 5 minutes, it will be nice and thick, and the cheese will be melted, and it's gonna be pretty delicious. So that is our homemade hamburger helper. You guys can do any type of substitution you need, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out and ask. Thanks guys, enjoy.